Hi, Editing Panda here. We're so excited to share with you our conversation with author Julie Leong. A quick apologies for some of the audio quality in the episode. We hope you still enjoy. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Green Team of the Legendarium. I'm your host, Befuddled Panda. My co-host today is Cesky.
Hey, everybody.
And we have a very special guest with us. She is a Chinese Malaysian American fantasy author who grew up in both New Jersey and Beijing. At Yale, she studied economics and political science, after which she had a stint in tech, but had always nurtured a deep love for sci fi fantasy beneath her corporate exterior. She now resides in San Francisco with her husband Drew, their rescue pup Kaya, and a magical, apparently, Meyer lemon tree in the backyard that somehow always has ripe lemons. When she's not writing, she enjoys making unnecessary spreadsheets and flambeing things. The Teller of Small Fortunes is her debut novel, and the sequel, The Keeper of Magical Things, is on its way, releasing in October. Welcome to the pod, Julie Leong.
Hi guys, so happy to be here.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're busy and you're probably getting ready for a book tour for The Keeper of Magical Things. So thank you so much for joining us. We're just gonna chat as a casual conversation, audio only, so no worries. And as a science fiction and fantasy focused podcast, we're always curious how authors' relationship with the genre got started at Worldcon. So we did meet at Worldcon, which was amazing.
So much fun.
Yes. We did bond over Tamora Pierce. Any other favorite books or media that got you into the genre?
Yeah, so I mean, I've always been a big reader, and growing up, I was the library was just my favorite place. And we actually had this thing at our public library in New Jersey where you were only allowed to borrow like 10 books at a time. And that was a problem for me who could read more than 10 books at a time. And so I just remember like going to the library as this tiny little Asian girl who couldn't see over the stack of books I was carrying to the front desk. And I would have to use one of my parents' cards to like double up on the allowances. So basically, I was making my way through like as many of the sci-fi fantasy books as I could find from a very early age. Tamora Pierce was obviously a huge favorite, the Tortal series, etc. But gosh, it's hard to name specific favorites because I feel like it was just a blur of binge reading everything. But I was also a big fan of the Redwall books by Brian Jakes.
Very good.
For those of you who don't know, the squirrels and otters and rabbits fighting the good fight from their little monastery, making cheeses and hot root soups. Yeah, it gave me. I think it appealed both to my love of like knights and swords and epic battles, but also of small warm furry creatures, which was a very good thing, very near and dear to most kids' hearts. Ooh, the Artemis Fowl series I remember as being a very early favorite.
Very good.
I don't know if that counts. Does that count as sci-fi fantasy?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
There were fairies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there were fairies. Okay, that counts. I was a big Harry Potter fan, which is, something that is interesting to deal with these days.
Yes.
Brings up complicated feelings. The Hobbit was a big favorite. Yeah, gosh. I feel I feel like this shouldn't be a hard question, but just coming up with discrete names of like titles and series that spoke to me from that early on just feels like an era ago.
No, that's great. On our podcast, we haven't covered the Redwall series, but on the main podcast, which we're a spin-off of, we did cover the first 3 books in the Redwall series, and that was fun.
Yeah. 10 books from the library, though, is just not enough at one time.
No.
It's not enough.
Not enough, period. I mean, we went to the library once a week, so I also I loved growing up in the library, but like, I'd max out my card too. Every week. 10 books, that's not enough. You need like 20 or 30 or
no
more.
shade to America's public libraries. librarians do great work, et cetera, et cetera.
That's
I'm sure
right.
there's good reason for the quotas, but it was not enough.
No, they need to up them for certain people. Okay, you're a reader, you get an extra 20 books on your limit, you know?
Yeah, it should be based on how many you're actually reading. You get to like
Yeah.
up the quota as you
They
go.
can give us like school grade quizzes, and if you pass enough quizzes, you get an upgraded library card, right there,
Or
right?
do you remember? I don't know if your library had the summer programs where they gave you like a cutout and they stuck them on a wall, and then you got stickers for every book you read. And when you
Oh,
filled up a card, you got like a coupon for a free
Oh,
pan pizza at
yes.
Pizza Hut.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
I
synergy.
will read for pizza, yes.
I will read without pizza, but I will happily take the pizza too.
yeah, for
Same.
sure.
Okay. So, as we've just been discussing, like, you have read your whole life, you love reading. I read that you kind of taught yourself how to write by reading. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think honestly most people do too. But I guess that's true in the sense that I've never taken any kind of structured writing courses. I didn't, major in literature and writing or anything like that. There's just kind of the usual English classes that you have through middle school and high school. I was too busy focusing on, developing a practical career, daughter of immigrants. So it's like you got to get the stable job.
Yep.
A creative career is kind of not something you plan for. And so it hadn't really occurred to me that I should or could be investing my time in kind of developing writing as a craft as opposed to, a hobby on the side.
Hmm.
And so I'd never really tried to write until I quit my corporate job back in 2022 when my dad was really sick. And I was, going back to reading, this kind of old love for comfort and for escapism. And I was binge reading everything, and I sort of like ran out of this very specific kind of book I wanted to be reading, which is stuff that's like warm, whimsical, comforting, cozy fantasy, I guess was the emerging name of that subgenre.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
because I wasn't studying and I wasn't working for the first time in my life as an adult, I was like, why not, just give myself this opportunity that I've never really had before to try writing just for myself at first. I didn't really plan on getting a book published.
Hmm.
But this book just kind of poured out of me. And I feel like it must have been just a ton of pent up, latent creative energy from all these years as being like a corporate cog kind of person,
Yeah.
because it really just like poured out and it felt so natural and so right that I do think it must have been just because I had been reading so much. And when you're reading, you're sort of engaging with the text in a way that honestly is not dissimilar from, when you're writing. Writing is just the inverse of reading in some senses. And so I feel like I'd gotten a lot of practice just by absorbing through osmosis all of these great things that I've been reading without actually having been writing myself. That said, there is definitely a place for working on your craft and focusing on writing. And, I'm sure that everybody who's taking classes and courses and workshops, et cetera, is getting a lot out of it. And maybe I will try to do that in the future too.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. Yeah. So for those that don't know, The Teller of Small Fortunes is, as you said, it's like classified as a cozy fantasy.
Hmm.
It's about
Hmm.
a traveling fortune teller named Tao who focuses on telling small fortunes because she's learned that big fortunes come with big consequences. And on her travels, she's recruited to help a semi-reformed thief and an ex-mercenary to find a lost child, and the adventure goes from there. So, why did you choose to write fantasy as opposed to sci-fi? Like, why not a cozy sci-fi?
I love cozy sci-fi. I'm glad you mentioned that because I actually have a lot of favorite cozy sci-fi books too. But I think at the time, like I mentioned, it was kind of a rough time in my life. My dad was really sick, COVID was happening. And so I wanted that kind of warm escapism. And part of that is almost nostalgia. And there's something deeply nostalgic, at least to me personally, about the classic fantasy
Mm,
environment and trope. And maybe that's just because I had read more fantasy than I had sci-fi growing up. But this idea of, the classic adventuring party, a noble quest, kind of found family bonds, those kinds of things are all deeply nostalgic. And nostalgia is kind of a weird word to use for it because it's not as if I grew up in like middle Europe, like on a traveling wagon fighting off bandits.
right.
But there is something I think almost universal in that because of how understood that world building sort of is. And
Hmm.
so it just felt like the natural place to be writing in. I think there is also a desire that I had to put myself in that kind of world. And they say
Mm.
that you shouldn't write self inserts and, authors shouldn't be putting themselves in their books. But, like, let's be honest, we all kind of do. And part of that I
Yeah.
wanted to because, I'd grown up reading a lot of these fantasies set in vaguely Western European worlds that
Mm.
didn't have Asian people. And I am a daughter of Chinese Malaysian immigrants. And, as a kid playing knights on my bicycle and with my like wooden twig branches, I always had to imagine myself as the characters in these books who were like white, blonde
Right.
guys
Mm-hmm.
in armor, which is like fine and great. But
Mhm.
I think as an adult, if I was going to be going back to that world and trying to write my own story in it, it kind of makes sense to write a main character who looks and feels and thinks a little bit more like you do. And something in all of us is always craving that kind of representation in the media that we consume. And so it was sort of intentional. I wanted to write a character that I hadn't seen in that kind of familiar, nostalgic setting before. And so I wrote a character who is an immigrant to this Western land and, is grappling with kind of being caught in between cultures of where she comes from and where she is now and learning languages, et cetera, and assimilating. And so that's a very long-winded way of saying I was I was writing something that just felt like home to me, and fantasy feels like home.
So good,
That's
yeah.
great. Yeah. I personally appreciated Tao as a character. I myself am an immigrant. My parents immigrated to the States when I was very young, and growing up, we moved around a lot. So
Hmm.
I was going to a new school like every year or two, having to make new friends all the
Hmm.
time. So I really related to Tao having to like travel from place to place and like
Hmm.
reintroducing herself and making connections anew every time.
Yeah,
And but like going to a new school was both exciting and frightening.
it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was like a chance to start over. And I was always excited to see like what the new school's library was gonna be like. So that was exciting.
Yeah, I had to do that. It sounds like not quite as often as you had to, but in, gosh, the summer of ninth grade, that was when I moved to Beijing, actually. And so I'd grown up
Okay.
going to public school in New Jersey, suburban America, and then I moved to Beijing, and part of me was like excited for it because I was going to China, and
Mhm.
people in China are Chinese, shocker. But I was like, for the first time, I'm going to be surrounded by people who look like me and eat foods that my family eats, and instead of feeling like a sore thumb in suburban America, maybe I'll fit in better in China and I won't feel like kind of the standout minority all the time. But what's weird is that I got to Beijing and turns out that I don't really fit in there either
I
because a
know.
Chinese American is very different from a Chinese person.
Yes.
And yeah, so there's this definitely being like, okay, we're caught between cultures, neither here nor there. Neither side fully accepts you. That's something that I kind of wrote into Tao's experience too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I'm really glad you brought that up because when I go back to Taiwan to visit my family,
Yeah.
you definitely I feel very American,
Hmm.
and I stand out. So I totally relate to
Yeah,
that.
it was awkward teenage Julie in her American Eagle jeans listening to Green
Yeah.
Day and like stumbling over Chinese when I try to order food in Chinese. And they look at me and I look Chinese and my Chinese sounds pretty good, but I like don't know the words for
Yeah.
things. Oh, yeah, no, there's
Can you read and write? Um,
like barely
Barely.
toddler level.
Okay,
I look
same level as
Chinese
me.
one, it's like in one ear, out the other, but I can speak it and understand it more or less fluently. So there's this
Right.
big disconnect, this reaction that I get from folks in China when they hear me speak, and then I like stumble over the most basic of phrases. They're like, "Are you stupid?"
Yeah, I
No,
feel
I'm just
that.
American.
Yeah.
So one of our members, Nat, asked, why do you think that the cozy or low stakes stories are kind of having a moment? They're kind of growing in popularity right now. What is
Mm,
it that's making readers want to turn to those books versus, like big epics or things like that?
yeah, it's a good question, one I've thought a lot about. So I think the rise of cozy fantasy came about largely during COVID, or at least that's when the term was coined, when Legends and Lattes and books like it got really big. And maybe it's a superficial answer, but it seems to me at least like its rise was a direct reaction to the state of the world around us.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
when everything was dark and terrible and depressing, you kind of gravitate towards the opposite of that, things that make you feel warm and comforted and like everything's going to be okay. And at least that was, my feeling, and what pushed me to write something cozy is that I was going through something challenging and looking for an escape from it. And sometimes it's also just, I don't know, I think it's nice to be reminded and to think about the fact that people generally are good and mean well.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Maybe especially when there are lots of counterexamples out there every time you read
Right.
the news and things like that, to kind of go back to the small stakes, the intimate relationships, and say, no, on an individual level, people are actually pretty great. Even if at the mass level, sometimes we suck. Even if often at the mass level, we kind of suck. But it makes me wonder, like, what's going to cause a swing back to epic? Will that really only happen when the world has resolved into a more stable and less stressful
Mm.
state, and then we're craving adventure and danger and revolution again? Or, I guess right now romantasy is really big. So what does that say about us and our social relationships?
Yeah.
That's true. What does it say about us that everybody is craving that romantasy, which
Hmm.
is usually pretty good from everything I've read. So I
Hmm.
think like you, I agree with you that low stakes and the cozy fantasies coming in because it's just got that like warm feeling where it's like everything's okay. Sometimes like we like to watch cooking shows. I can't
Mm.
cook at all, but I love watching the cooking shows. But
Yeah.
my wife gets incredibly stressed when we're watching them. Just I like it's okay. It's just a dumb show. They're gonna be okay. Like they're gonna cook what they're gonna cook, and it's gonna be fine.
But Chesky, what if the cake gets burned?
Yeah, but they're master chefs, so that rarely ever happens. They're like
Okay,
the
okay.
best of the best, and I'm
Yeah, the
like,
professionals.
yeah, but it's like the coziness, just like instead of having that, in my entertainment, I don't want my entertainment to sometimes be high stakes and pressure, and like
Yeah,
Mm.
like I have to keep watching or I have to keep reading. Sometimes it's nice to just have a book that's like, you know what? If I stop at the end of this chapter, it's okay.
yeah,
The stakes are low enough that I can always come back and feel that I can get more enjoyment by not having it be so pressured on me to like
yeah.
really delve into. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say?
I think it does, yeah. And to be clear, I like epic fantasy a lot too.
Yeah.
And I think often I like to actually kind of mix and match my reading cadence. So I'll read something like super stressful and big and epic, and then maybe like as a palate cleanser, something a little lighter and warmer, and kind of ping pong back and forth between them. I also think that low stakes doesn't necessarily mean no stakes. It just means the stakes are more personal as opposed to more the world is ending. And like what's interesting, I was reflecting on this recently. Cozy fantasy isn't really a thing in children's books or even in like MG or young adult necessarily. Cozy fantasy, at least as
Hmm.
I've seen it, is almost exclusively an adult genre thing. And I think it's because it's the adults that like need to be taken back to kind of fairy tale. It's almost like fairy tales for adults, where you need to kind of get away from the stress and the jadedness and the cynicism that being an adult often imposes upon you, whether you like it or not.
Yes, yes. Being adult can be very stressful, and the return to the low stakes, nice coziness is great. Versus a kid is, I want to go out and do things. I don't want to sit at home and
Yeah,
just bake or do this. I want to experience. I want to do. It's big
right.
differences in the readers as well. Yeah.
Right, like sitting around a campfire and just trauma dumping on some friends sounds pretty nice sometimes.
Yeah.
Eating some stew,
Yeah, yeah, much
as one
better.
does.
Yeah. I mean, like, slice of life is often, one of the main elements of what makes a book cozy.
Mhm.
So, what elements of, the teller of small fortunes have you drawn from your own everyday life? You mentioned before that you do bake as
Mm,
well.
I do, yeah. I can't say I bake well, so in that sense, the character of Kino is partially inspired by my baking travails. Yeah, I actually stress bake. So now that you mention it, those two things do go together very well. Like I bake when I'm the most stressed, and I think it's because I feel like I need to have control over something. And when you're pouring out the flour and massaging the dough and sticking it in the oven, that is something you have full control over, and it comes out as this physical artifact of you having imposed order upon the chaos of the universe. And sometimes you get to eat it. Sometimes sometimes you burn it, and then you don't want to eat it. Yeah, so let's see. What other slice of life elements were drawn for me besides the unfortunately unesthetic baking?
I'm
Um,
sure the baking was better than my baking. I can promise you that.
I'm getting better at it. Ever since my husband explained to me that baking is really just chemistry and that you actually do have to follow the recipes and measure things very precisely or they will explode, um, I've gotten better.
Yeah.
I think the travel element is another that I really enjoy and I find comforting.
Yeah.
I really enjoy traveling, so we try whenever we can both to do kind of local road trips outside of San Francisco, but also to go to other countries. Um, and there's something about being on the road that just pulls you out of the doldrums of your everyday life, right? You're not
Mhm.
thinking about work or your taxes or like chores or the laundry. You're just thinking about this new unexplored world that you haven't been to, with tasty food to eat and interesting things to see and like brand new people to meet. And that to me is like the closest we can get in real life to the fantasy of fantasy, almost, if that makes sense.
Oh
Mm,
It's
yeah.
like world discovery. It's when you're
yeah.
reading a new fantasy book and you're learning the rules of this brand new magical world. It's that, but in real life and less dragons.
Speaking of dragons, actually, I
Mm,
wanted to ask you, do you have any
a dragon.
experience?
Yes, do you have a dragon? And if you do, please share. Please.
How did you get a dragon? Um, Dungeons and Dragons. Any
Ah,
experience in Dungeons and Dragons?
very embarrassingly minimal.
That's not embarrassing at all.
No, it is for me because I
Oh,
feel
okay.
like everything else about me says that I should be an avid Dungeons and Dragons player, but somehow I've made it through 31 years of life without playing a full game of Dungeons and Dragons. Not for lack of trying. I have tried, Panda.
Yes, yes.
Turns out it is hard to find a group that will like meet consistently
Yeah.
at a location and timing that is convenient for everybody, that actually like runs through a campaign with a good dungeon master, etc. And I never really wanted to do the virtual thing because it felt kind of, different. I want the full
Yeah.
experience.
Hmm.
And so somehow I've just managed to never actually fully experience Dungeons and Dragons. Now, I have played Dungeons and Dragons Online, the MMORPG, alongside basically every other MMORPG that might have existed.
Yes.
But that's not quite the same thing.
I hear you. So I tried playing Dungeons and Dragons the first time online,
Mm,
and I didn't really know the people,
mhm.
and so yeah, the experience was very different. But
Yeah.
now I'm in a in-person group with like my husband's friends, and like we're meeting like every 2 weeks playing through,
Mhm,
and we're like going on a year now in our
mhm.
campaign.
Oh wow. That's good.
And, at first it's like learning the mechanics, and so the role playing part wasn't
Yeah,
as prominent. But once you get more familiar, know who your characters are, and then like starting to really,
yeah.
embody them, that's
Mhm.
been really fun. The reason why I bring it up too is because I was like flipping through the book today, and I was like, you know what? This would actually make a really fun Dungeons and Dragons campaign.
I have heard
Hmm.
that.
Yeah. Like, I mean, just the whole fortune thing, right? Like, you can roll dice for that. And, there's like investigation, there's mystery, right? Yeah, so I think it would make a great campaign.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm very flattered. I'd love to see somebody do that. And actually, do you know Olivia Atwater?
I know of her,
Know
yes.
of
Yeah,
her, yeah.
the author of Half a Soul,
Mhm.
Small Miracles, a handful of other books that I really love. So she was one of the authors who read and blurbed The Teller of Small Fortunes and was very
Mhm.
kind enough to like say a nice thing about it. But she actually told me afterward that she liked the concept of the small fortune so much that she did in fact put that into her Dungeons and
Oh
Dragons
my goodness.
game, like with her husband and friends. And so I thought that was, the
That's
highest praise that I could receive.
That's
that is
amazing.
very cool.
Yeah. So you're not the only one who had that thought. You're in good company, Panda.
Awesome, awesome. I mean, yes, if people are interested in Dungeons and Dragons, please go read this book. You will get inspired.
Can I ask you, Panda, who is your Dungeons and Dragons character?
I am a druid dwarf.
Mm,
Her name is Jackie Stormbrew. Wow, I forgot her
nice.
name. Jackie Stormbrew, and she is chaotic good.
Nice.
So
Wow.
I get to have fun with. I mean, I can tell you some of the amazing things that we've already been able to do, but that might be a little too much. I'll tell you
Well,
later.
if we ever get the chance to play Dungeons and Dragons together by some happenstance, my character that I've got ready to go is a half elf rogue with daddy issues and is chaotic neutral.
Oh, oh my. Okay, we have to make this happen somehow. Well, we'll chat about it.
We'll chat.
Yeah, either I'll go to San Francisco or you come to Seattle.
Just at the next Worldcon, you can find a table
Yes,
and
the
throw
next
it
one's
down,
gonna be
right?
in LA, or
Yeah, we could just
technically
call it a
Anaheim.
panel and like get a few other friends and just play
Yeah,
Dungeons and Dragons.
That would
yeah,
be,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I'm down. Okay, so there was a part in Teller that I thought was a little meta.
Mm,
So let me grab the quote real quick. It was Mash.
mm,
Mash says, heroes still had to earn coin, and eat stale bread and behind bushes, didn't they? They just leave those bits out of the stories when they tell them.
Yeah.
I was wondering, like, was it difficult, like, when you were writing? Was there anything you wrote for Teller that you ended up having to cut but would have loved to keep in?
Ooh, that's a good question. For the record, I did not write any scenes of them behind bushes that my editor reviewed. But was there anything else? Let me see. So I'm an underwriter, which means that actually in the course of editing, The Teller of Small Fortunes grew from being more of a bare bones to being more of a full-fledged book. And so the word count increased as opposed to decreasing. Other authors work differently. So I don't think there are scenes or chapters that I written with the intention of putting in the book that I then had to excise. It was more like I had to write new things for it. But there's definitely stuff that I came up with and maybe wrote down in the form of like outlines or bullets
Mm,
that I didn't intend to be in the book, but I wrote as kind of supplementary material so I could shore up my own understanding of the world building and kind of have it in the background as I was writing the other stuff.
Sure.
But that it didn't make sense to put it into the book as like its own content. And
Hmm.
so I think the religion system is something that I went a
mm,
little unnecessarily deep on in my like scaffolding.
uh-huh.
And I think that was just because, a lot of fantasy books, particularly epic fantasy, religion and faith tends to be a really big aspect of the world building. And I didn't want it to be like this flimsy thing that just got slapped on. And I also seem to have like a seed of a thought for a non cozy, more epic fantasy kind of digression. And so in my head and in my notes, the religion system had like this whole schism. I don't
Mm,
remember, or I don't know if you remember the details of it, but like the mother is the deity figure, and
Hmm.
so it's kind of matriarchal in that sense. But then there
right.
are the three sons who represent different kind of spheres of life. There's a martial son, the scholar son, and the maker son. And so they get kind of
Hmm.
everything that's industrious or militaristic, etc. And then there's the daughter, who is kind of the unwanted god among this pantheon.
Yeah.
And I had this whole backstory about why that was and how there's kind of this forked offshoot of the religion that actually it wasn't the daughter who kind of turned away from the family, and it was more that she was the one who intentionally was given all the things that were wild and unloved,
Oh.
and wasn't kind of the negative villain of the god and pantheon, and that ended up having no place at all in a cozy fantasy.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, I could see that for sure. Yeah.
Religious schisms are not cozy, so
Well, who knows? Maybe you can use that for a different book in the future.
Yeah.
maybe, yeah. Just a world that looks very slightly like Eshtera, but is
Yeah,
also different.
yeah.
So I know you're writing your sequel, the Keeper of Magical Things. How has your experience been different than writing the first one? I mean, the first one, I know you said it was kind of just creative backlog, and it just kind of
Mhm.
came out and you wrote it. Now that you've not had as much creative backlog, for 20, 30 years, how's that going writing the sequel book?
Yeah, so the second book, The Keeper of Magical Things, it's actually done. It's coming out next month.
Yes.
So if I were still writing it, that would definitely be a problem for my publisher.
That's you're right. You're right. That's right. I messed up.
No, but the process of writing it was definitely very different. Both because, as you were saying, like I didn't have this kind of pent up creative energy, and it was more like, okay, let's go write a second book in this world now.
Mhm.
But also because there was a lot more pressure. Writing the first book, I didn't know that it was going to end up getting published. I didn't know it was going to
Right.
be published by Penguin. I didn't know it was going to have pretty wide readership. And the second book, it's like, okay, well, there are readers that liked my first book, thankfully, and will read the second one, and oh no, what if I disappoint them and my parents, and my ancestors, and I should never write again? Um, which, from what I understand from other authors, is a pretty common feeling. They call it second book syndrome.
Mm.
And yeah, it really is a thing, guys. But I think what helped is that I'd actually drafted an entirely different second book that was going
Oh,
to be my second book. It's set in Shannara, so like Tao's home kingdom,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
and that was going to be my second book. And then I had this sort of crisis, feeling this pressure, and was like, oh no, what if this book isn't the right second book? It's not cozy enough, it's too different. Let me go write something else. And so The Keeper of Magical Things was actually the third book that I wrote that
Oh,
took the place
wow.
of the second one, because I thought the second book that came out should be something more similar in coziness levels to The Teller of Small Fortunes.
Mm.
But what was great is that I let myself have fun with it and was like, okay, I don't know if this will be the one. I still have this other book as a backlog, but
Hmm.
let's just try something that I enjoy writing. And so I got to take a similar conceit. The Teller of Small Fortunes sprang from this idea of, all right, no epic prophecies, small fortunes only, day-to-day fortunes. What would that look like? And The Keeper of Magical Things was similarly taking from this this long history that epic fantasy has of magical artifacts, which I love.
Right.
Like I always wanted the enchanted sword or like the cloak of invisibility or the magic ring, etc. But all those things are, powerful and cursed and all these other things. And so what if you took those and shrank them down to household magical artifacts, little magical artifacts? What would they look like? And how silly can I get with it? So coming up with those was kind of really fun. And then exploring a very different part of the world. And instead of, like in Teller, they were traveling all over the kingdom and I had to keep coming up with new settings. I was like, let's just park them in one place and kind of really get to know that. And so it ended up being kind of this combination of, I was stressed and, feeling the pressure of it at the beginning, but once I got into writing the book, it just started flowing because I forgot about all that and got to just immerse myself in this little Stardew Valley-esque corner of my magical kingdom and play
Yeah.
with, magical pasta makers and cat boxes and things like that, which ended up being a lot of fun.
I love
So
that.
yeah, I'm excited for the book to come out. I hope people still like it as much as The Teller of Small Fortunes, but it is also quite different in many senses. So one, like I mentioned, it's stationary instead of journeying, and two is it does have a romance, a sapphic
Mm.
romance, whereas The Teller of Small Fortunes was very intentionally focused more on platonic relationships. I thought of Tao as being like Ace Arisbeck, but for The Keeper of Magical Things, I wanted there to be a little bit of a love story, so I wrote that in too.
That's really exciting. I'm glad to hear and learn all these things about it. So, what's your favorite part to write? Is it the character development? Is it more the plotting, kind of what's going to happen, building the world around them? Like, where do you go first?
Definitely the characters.
Mm.
I'm a vibes first world builder,
Vibes first.
which
I
is
love
Yes.
that.
a polite way of saying, yeah, characters first for sure. I think if I had my way, they would all just be kind of talking heads floating and reacting to each other across a campfire. Um, I mean, I enjoy all the rest of it too, but I am not somebody who would sit down and make like a 30-page compendium of here is how the world works and here's the economy, and I don't draw a map and the thing with the macaroni that people do. You guys know
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
macaroni
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know what you're talking about. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no macaroni going on in my writing process. I start with the characters, and instead the rest of it kind of fills in around them. It almost is like I don't know if you've played video games like Age of Empires or Heroes or anything
Hmm.
like that, but there's this concept in video games called the fog of war, where you can only see like this little corner of the world
Right.
map, and as
Sure.
it moves,
Hmm.
it like pulls back the fog, and you see more and discover more. Yeah, my writing is kind of like that. I don't really know what's in the world until I go to its edges and kind of force the fog to disperse a little bit. And I need characters to do that, so the characters come first.
Awesome. No, that's great. Let's see. Yeah, was there anything? One of our guys, our users asked again.
Mhm.
Nat asked, was it easier writing your second and third book versus just writing your debut? And how did that change? Like, was
Yeah.
there any like process that you're like, oh, it worked really good for the first book, and then you're like, this book, I'm doing it backwards, or completely different.
Yeah, it's a great question. This is probably the wrong answer, but I think it's getting harder and not easier.
Oh.
And I think that's not how it's supposed to work. But I think it really is just I had none of the self-consciousness when I was writing my first
Right.
book. And now it's like there are all these things that you know about or know you're supposed to be doing or that other people are doing. And so even if you're not trying to, you're thinking about what is the right way to do this and how will readers react to this? And God forbid, what will Goodreads think of this? Goodreads is the bad place, by the way. We don't speak of Goodreads. And if you're an aspiring writer, number one piece of advice is do not go on Goodreads. It will mess you up.
Yeah.
And like you can get over that, right? You remind yourself that you're writing not for everyone. You remind yourself that you're writing a story that will resonate with you and therefore with, other readers, but not necessarily but there will be no book will work for everybody, but there's still a lot that can distract you, I think. And I think my biggest help in writing The Teller of Small Fortunes was not being burdened by any of that kind of baggage that goes with I am writing a book and here's the way to do
Right.
it and here are wrong ways to do it and here are the tools you need to use. I just opened a blank Google document and like wrote words like monkey typewriter, and the book came out. When I say it's harder, I don't mean I'm proud of The Keeper of Magical Things and the other books that I've written so far and secret other things that I have coming up. And I do think that my writing is getting better and my craft is getting better. But even if that's the case, it doesn't necessarily feel better in the moment. It feels like
Sure.
there's kind of the artist taste trough cycle. Do you know of this?
I've
I might
heard
be
of it.
describing it poorly. The taste curve, where basically the better you get, the better sense you have of what good looks like and
Right.
what great looks like.
Oh yeah.
And so even if you're getting better, you might feel like your work is worse, but that's because your horizons are expanding and your bar is raising. And that
Mm-hmm.
kind of like goes through these
Mm.
cycles of, oh, it's great. Oh, no, it's terrible. Oh, it's good. Oh, no, it's terrible. And you just kind of have to modulate yourself to where you are on that curve at any given point in time. And yeah, I think reading other books is probably the other big thing that really helps because it kind of refills the creative well and
Mm-hmm.
it reminds you of what good and great look like and that, you could always get better. Man, I was reading so much Ursula Le Guin in the past couple of months. And Ursula Le Guin will put you at the trough cycle of the taste cycle because you're like, God damn it, she is so good.
She's definitely got some skill. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
We've got lots of Le Guin fans on our
Oh, good.
Discord
Yeah,
community.
good taste.
Yeah. Well, okay, so we've been talking a lot about the writing, but what about the
Mm.
publishing experience? So, anything you've learned from your first publishing experience that you're applying to your new book?
Anything I learned from the first book that I'm applying to the rest of my publishing journey? I think I'm learning to relax a little bit,
Okay.
hopefully. Yeah. So being a debut is very, very exciting. It's also very like overwhelming.
You're learning so much at the same time.
Yeah, you're learning so much. It's a
Yeah.
real Publishing is a really opaque world, and a lot of things don't really make much sense, especially if
Mm.
you're coming from other industries. You kind of squint at it, and you're like, how does that even work? Like as a business.
Right.
But as a debut, you've got all your hopes pinned on this one book. You have no idea how it's going to land, and so you want to do everything within your power to try to maximize your book's chances of success in finding its
Mm-hmm.
readers. And so you're doing, social media, and you're like all the publicity stuff and making graphics on Canva that look terrible and posting about Barnes and Noble pre-orders.
Hey, your social media posts are great. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Grain of salt, but thank you. I'll take it. I will say any of the nicer looking graphics I did not make. My publisher made for me and just sent them to
Okay.
me to post. So I think only the ugly ones I can take credit for. But you're doing all these things and you don't know whether any of them actually move the needle. But you look
Mm.
around you and like other debuts are there too, and you've made friends with them and you're in a community and you're like, oh, well, they're doing these things, so I need to do it too. And it just means that there's a ton of activity and motion that doesn't necessarily do all that much, but stresses you out the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the one thing I learned is that there's just so much luck involved in publishing. And I had to be really lucky to even get here. Lucky to, get an agent who wanted to represent my book. Lucky that publishers wanted to buy the book. Lucky that they wanted to buy it for an amount that means they would then invest in marketing. Lucky that I got, Fairy Loot picks and Owl Crate and Book of the Month, etc. All these things were extraordinarily lucky. And there's not necessarily a direct correlation between all the publishing success a book gets and how good of a book it is. Like some of the best books I've read never got an agent, or they got an agent but like they haven't sold, or they sold but they went under the radar. And you kind of have to abstract that away from yourself and say, okay, the book is going to do how it's going to do. It
Right.
doesn't necessarily reflect on me, the writer, and it certainly doesn't reflect on me, the human being. I'm not going to tie up all of my self-worth in the fate of this book. And I think I've been better about that with book two than I have with book one, because there's all this stuff that, like, frankly, is not within your control and is kind of
Right.
up to the winds of fate and also the publisher and whomever else. So you kind of just toss it out there and hope the world likes it.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
good. Yeah.
actually, speaking of like the look of the book, the overall
Mm.
packaging of your books, both the UK and the US version,
Hmm.
are beautiful. So
Yeah.
great job, everybody who's involved. The US cover illustration was by Devin L. Kurtz,
That's right. Yeah.
and the UK cover, I forget her name or their name.
There are several different UK covers,
Oh my
Oh,
goodness.
cool.
but yeah. Oh goodness. Fen Inkwright, I
Okay.
believe,
Oh yes, yes, yes. Fang
for the
Inkwright.
UK cover of The Teller of Small Fortunes. Yeah, everybody involved did a great job, and there's also like design directors from the publishers who worked with those
Right.
cards. Katie Anderson in the US, Lydia Blyden in the UK. Also, we're about to reveal the UK covers for The Keeper of Magical Things very soon.
I
Long
saw your
awaited.
tease.
Yeah, I hope people like it. I think they're beautiful. Obviously, I'm biased. But yeah, covers really matter. And like, I can take zero credit for that whatsoever. Like, Devin, Katie, Lydia, etc., everybody did a great job with that. And yeah, just looking at it makes me happy. Like,
I
come
know,
on.
it's so
Yeah.
Yeah.
vibrant, it's very eye-catching.
Like, I want to live in this world.
Also, the contents of the book, like,
Oh,
lives up to the beauty of the
thank
cover,
you.
so that you can take credit for.
Thank you. That's very kind.
And speaking of, like,
Yeah.
other packaging of the book, the audio narrator, Phyllis Ho,
Phyllis Ho, yeah.
did an amazing job. Will they be returning for the second book?
So the second book will be narrated by Natalie Naudis, actually,
Oh,
who you may know. She's narrated a ton of other things,
yeah.
Cool.
but she has built a real name for herself among like sapphic books in particular, and is also of Asian descent. So I thought it would be really cool to have kind of somebody represent that community.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's
I also
great.
love Phyllis Ho though, so hopefully we can continue to do something with both of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really glad that cuz I started reading the book physically and I was like, "Oh, I'm just
Mhm.
curious about the audiobook." And then I was
Yeah.
like reading both at the same time. Like I
Oh
want
wow.
both experience.
I could never.
Okay. We have like a few more questions and then we'll talk a little bit more about your new book.
Okay.
I was curious. So, like I mentioned before, we met at Worldcon, and I was curious, was it difficult to transition from a reader of science fiction and fantasy to now also being a writer of it, now that you have fans like around the world?
Um, yeah, that's an interesting way to think about it. I honestly haven't thought about it as a transition. Like,
Okay.
it feels like more of a and as opposed to an or. And you saw me waiting in plenty of reader lines at Worldcon, so you'll know that I'm still a very, very much in the reader spaces. I think what has been different is how I engage with what I'm reading, and also to a lesser extent, like what I am reading has changed.
Okay.
So the cool thing, both cool and slightly uncool in different ways, about being an author is that I now get sent arcs to read all the
Mm,
time. Arcs, advanced review copies.
Yes.
So before books come out several months ahead of time, the editor or the author might, send me a book that is going to be released to read it early and hopefully, say something nice about it, either to be a blurb on the inside or the cover or just to, help promote it as a fellow author in the genre. And so
mhm.
that's super cool because I get to read, books that I would really want to read several months ahead of time and feel special.
Yeah.
Um, but it also, in many cases, feels a little bit like an obligation. So
Mm,
when I was a
Mm.
debut author, we did that too. We sent the Teller Small Fortunes to a bunch of authors in the
right.
hopes that they would read it, say something nice, and therefore, help kind of spread the word about the book. And I was so, so grateful to every single author who did it, who like read it for me and said something nice, and we put that in the like library or the marketing materials, etc. And those things I felt like did make a difference in terms of getting the book out there into the world. And so, as a non-debut author, I really feel the obligation to kind of give back in the same way that those people were generous with their time and gave back to me. And so I've been trying to say yes to and read and blurb as many books as I can that I must do. And I keep track of these in a document just so I don't lose track of them because sometimes they have deadlines. And I was looking at these the other day, and it's something like 40 something books
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
over the
Yeah.
last 9 months or something like that
Yeah.
that I've been reading and blurbing, and that is a lot of books. And so, because I'm saying yes to so many of these, I feel like they have started to dominate my TBR.
Ah.
Hmm.
And many of these are like really, really great books. Like I haven't blurbed anything that wasn't honest.
Mhm.
But it's different when you're reading just books that are kind of like tossed at you as opposed to when you're a reader, you're like,
Right.
oh, what am I feeling like now? Maybe I'd like a cozy sci-fi, or oh, what's something that like feels like this series that I really like? And I'm gonna go chase that down and like, oh, read some reviews. There's less of that in my life right now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to wonder whether I need to kind of pare back a little bit on the blurbing in order to give myself a little bit more space to like refill my own wells by seeking out books that don't need blurbs.
Right. It's actually funny that you say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because, as a podcast,
Hmm.
like, nobody is telling us what to pick and what to cover
Hmm.
or anything. We bring it upon ourselves.
Yeah.
But sometimes we get ourselves into situations where it's like all of our personal reading is dictated
Mm-hmm.
by the podcast. Like
Yeah.
we start covering a certain series and now like we don't want to leave it hanging.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a new book is coming out and kind of like you're driven by like the publishing schedule as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of funny you bring that up because it's actually for us as podcasters quite relatable.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
sounds pretty
very
similar.
relatable.
Yeah, especially for a mood reader, it's a
Mm-hmm.
little challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I need to draw some boundaries. Maybe
Yeah.
you should do the same.
It's always good. So you said that you like to create unnecessary spreadsheets, and I'd like to just first off say every spreadsheet is necessary. That's why it gets
Okay.
created in the first place. Now I'll embarrass myself here a little bit. My most embarrassing or like unnecessary spreadsheets were I've created spreadsheets to track like where things are. So like I put things in bins, and then I wrote down this bin, and then I'd write what's in it, and then I'd put in another one. I've used it to track. I like to play idle games a lot, so I've built many spreadsheets over countless sheets, just tracking things inside the game and timers going, and like if I do this and I get this, will it affect this, and I'll get that, and just very minute detail that I spend way too much time on. But
A man after my own heart.
yeah, what's your most unnecessary spreadsheet?
Oh gosh, most unnecessary is hard. Some recent examples. We were looking to buy a new mattress. Have you ever bought a new mattress?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay. Talk about opaque
Mm-hmm.
worlds with like very detailed. Yeah. I did not realize the extent to which mattress buying was like a very complex adventure. So a large and detailed spreadsheet was needed for that.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
Yeah, and then obviously there's new tabs for like the bed sheets that go along with it,
Of
not to mention the
course.
bed frame, whole thing. I wouldn't say these are unnecessary spreadsheets because I find them deeply necessary, but every time I travel, that is its own spreadsheet for like that segment of the journey,
Oh
for the
yes,
itinerary,
of
for
course.
like the costs and the tracking and the flights and everything. And I was very proud of once in college, actually. We were planning a group trip, a graduation trip to Southeast Asia, like 6 of us. And because there's 6 of us, we went very deep on the planning. This was like a long trip. But I also built a dynamic, color coded expense divider that like pulled in
wow.
real-time currency exchange data depending
Oh
on like
my.
where we were on a given day.
Yeah.
And then like, yeah, okay, Chesky gets it.
I get it. That's awesome. That's
And then we had to like
amazing.
minimize the number of payments that we had to make among each other at the very end. So, there are 6 of us. So how do you make it to the fewest number of transactions to equal everything out at the end? I was very proud of that one.
That's amazing.
That sounds like it would be an app.
It probably is. I
That's-
probably could have just found one, but
I know, but
Spreadsheets
like
are
you basically made an app using spreadsheets.
spreadsheets are basically apps in disguise. That's all they are.
That is
they're
true.
just very inelegant, clunky apps
Yeah.
for nerds.
Once you add macros in there, I'm just like, I'm sorry, I'm out.
That's where it starts getting real fun, when you get your VLOOKUPs and your Excel
VLOOKUPs
sheets.
I can
See,
do.
that's
Index match is actually better than VLOOKUP. I would recommend, but
Oh,
yeah.
okay. I got to look into this now.
Or XLOOKUP. XLOOKUP's way better than VLOOKUP.
advanced. Yeah.
Well, okay, fine. I'll go do my homework. Okay.
We're going to turn this into a spreadsheet podcast for the next few minutes here, going over all of our individual functions and stuff.
Well, speaking of, though, one function that I found when I was working on something totally unrelated, import range.
Mhm.
So, like, if you don't want to have to maintain multiple tabs, spreadsheets, but the data is going to be the same, then import range is great. So
It's a good
then
one.
you can just lock that baby up and then, maintain it in one core source of truth.
You all have got me wondering how I can write a cozy fantasy about spreadsheets now. I'm like,
Oh my goodness.
Spreadsheet-based magic system.
That would love it, yeah. I
Sign
recently
me up.
discovered the amazing 2-column function and then 2-row function, which takes a column and turns it into a row, or a row and turns it into a column.
Wait, I always do the copies
Transpose?
transpose.
No, 2-col is cooler.
Okay, now I gotta go look this up. Great.
TOCOL. That's what the formula is. Yes, there you go, guys. That's your Excel pep tick of the Legendarium Green Tea podcast here.
Yeah, guys, we're really cool. I promise.
Yeah. We'll compile a list and then put it in the show notes.
This is how you know we're cool, is that we can do Excel formulas in our head here. Come on.
Oh my gosh. Okay, continue on the silly train. So this portion of the podcast is called This or That, and you don't need to think too hard about it. I'm going to give you a series of prompts, and each prompt will have two things. And you just say which of those things that you prefer.
Oh, I love this. Okay.
Okay.
Get ready.
All right. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Morning or night?
Night.
Digital or physical books for reading?
Ooh, this one's hard. So I love the smell of physical books, but digital is much more convenient for reading horizontally in bed at night with the lights off.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yes. Dragons or dinosaurs?
Dragons are just dinosaurs with wings. Obviously.
But cooler?
Yes.
Comedy or drama movie?
Comedy.
Beach or mountain?
Mountain.
Zombies or vampires?
Ugh. Vampires, I suppose, if I must.
If you have to choose. Ninjas or pirates?
Pirates if they have showered recently. That's like
we'll
my
allow
one
it.
thing with pirates. You know, it's just like you're living on a ship, you're all sweaty, it's hot. They're definitely not hygienic. But if you just clean them a little, I would love them.
Oh my god. I love it. Okay. Guacamole or salsa?
Salsa.
Babies dressed as animals or animals dressed as humans?
Animals dressed as humans, 100%.
It's great.
Oh my gosh. Passenger or driver?
So my license is expired.
I guess I know that answer.
Pen or pencil?
Pen.
Calling or texting?
Texting.
Burgers or hot dogs?
Burgers.
Free lunch or free dessert?
Free dessert.
Puppies or kittens?
Kaya? Jump up. Jump up. Oh, sorry. I was going to try to summon my dog, but she's very sleepy. But puppies.
Of course, very sleepy. Of course, right now she has to be very sleepy.
I know. Yeah, Kaya, I'm just trying to show you off. No.
Lake or ocean?
Ocean.
Beginning or end?
Beginning.
Nice. Okay, now somebody can go and psychoanalyze that.
Oh no.
No, just kidding. Okay, so we've been already talking a bit about your new book, The Keeper of Magical Things, which you've described, as I saw on your Reddit AMA, Spell Shop meets Warehouse 13 with strong Stardew Valley vibes. Yeah?
Pretty accurate. You do your research.
I try. Would you like to tell our listeners what the book is about?
Yes. So The Keeper of Magical Things is set in the same world as The Teller of Small Fortunes, but with a different cast of characters entirely. It's still a standalone. You don't have to have read one to read the other. And it is about Certainty Bulrush, who is a novice mage in the Guild of Mages and has been stuck at the novice level for many years because her magic is unfortunately much weaker than that of her classmates. She can't really do spells very well, and her only unique magical ability is that she can talk to objects and convince them to do, very minor magical changes for her. But it's not a super useful ability until something starts going awry at the guild tower. And it turns out that they've been storing too many magical artifacts in one place for too long. And as magic has a tendency to do when it's concentrated in one place, it starts turning people into cabbages. And so...
Okay, I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
Fun fact, that used to be hams, and then my editor was like, a little too much horror if you get turned into like a meat product. And I was like, cabbages.
Cabbages.
Much cozier. So Certainty gets sent on a magical assignment to take a large amount of very minorly unimportant magical artifacts from the guild tower and transport them somewhere else safe to be inventoried. And that somewhere safe happens to be the least magical place in the kingdom, a village called Spelling. But because her magic isn't very good, she is paired with a more senior mage from the Guild of Mages named Aurelia, who is in fact a very powerful magic user, but also everybody kind of hates her, and she's not sure why, but also she smells great and is very pretty. And
of course.
I'm not doing a great job at pitching this. It's been a long work day. But they end up in this magical village taking care of all these magical artifacts, hence the Warehouse 13.
Oh
The
yeah.
village is sort of in disrepair, and there's a reason for the village being so unmagical that they uncover as they spend time there and get to know each other. And then all these magical artifacts are kind of a headache. And oh yeah, there's a cat dragon.
Yeah.
Just had to
just
sneak that one in there.
just happens to be
Just
there.
have
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting strong Warehouse 13 vibes, which I loved.
Great
It's
show.
amazing. So,
I
yeah, I'm
haven't
very
watched
excited.
it. Now I gotta go watch it.
Come on, Panda. You get going.
I've read The Spell Shop, which
Mhm.
I really
That's good.
enjoyed,
That's
and
good.
I am deep in my Stardew Valley farm. So
Aren't we all?
at work, I got to host a presentation, and I got to choose the theme. I did choose Stardew Valley theme. I'm very proud of that. Thank you.
I am proud of you too, Panda. Yeah, gold star.
Okay, on a more serious note, how did you decide on naming the character Certainty?
Um, so I'm not great at naming. A lot of my names I like write down as placeholders, and I'm like, I'll fix that later. And then in the course of writing the book, the names kind of grow on you, and then it becomes very hard to change them after the fact in your brain. And so that's a little bit what happened with Certainty. But also, it's like, I don't know if you've ever read old timey documents from early America, for example, and a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
more religious kind of settlements. And the ways they named people back then were wild.
Prudence.
Yeah, Prudence. Prudence would be a very normal name by those standards. Yeah. But I like the idea of, name your child after something that you want, a virtue you want them to embody,
Mhm.
something you want them to have.
Mhm.
And Certainty for an uncertain character who's having a large character arc around this whole idea of, discovering confidence in herself and value in her own worth outside of her abilities. Just kind of felt right. And then it stuck. So
I love it.
Yeah, that's perfect. No, that was great.
thank you.
So your first book, yeah, I mean, we talked about this a little bit. It was mostly aromantic, just kind of platonic friendships. And now this one,
Mhm.
you're saying there is going to be a romance. Is that just you wanted to kind of try out the romance side? Is it just what you felt the story needed? Like, what was your kind of decision making there?
Yeah, it was a little bit of both, I think. I think with the Teller of Small Fortunes, I really wanted to focus on those platonic relationships because I feel like they're often overlooked in favor of romance.
Mm-hmm.
But the Keeper of Magical Things, it was kind of about both of these characters. Like Certainty is the main character, but so is Aurelia in a sense, and they both go on different but intersecting journeys. And it felt just right as I was writing it for those journeys to kind of intersect and then coincide together in the form of a romance. And so I don't think I was explicitly setting out at the beginning, like, okay, time to write a romance. I didn't write one last time. Now I've got to write one. And it's more just like, what is the shape of the story I want to be writing? And as these two characters discovering ways to love, themselves a little bit better and figuring out that together.
Perfect.
Nice. So we know you have an adorable cockapoo Kaya, but and Matt wanted to know, would you have a cat dragon if you could?
Oh, absolutely. Honestly, I would have like several cats, several dogs, an alpaca, a chinchilla. Well, I would have a whole menagerie if I could, but San Francisco real estate is a little bit limiting in that sense.
Yes, it
As
is.
is my dog, who does not appreciate cats very
Ah.
much,
That's fair.
unfortunately.
That's fair.
But yeah, a cat dragon would be amazing. Like, imagine all the bugs it would catch for you.
I hate spiders, so if it can eat all the spiders, then yes, please.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, cats are great at that, but a cat dragon, it's like there's a mosquito in the corner.
Yes.
It would be even better. Yeah, that's really. I'm
I
excited
guess
for a cat
the one
dragon now.
downside is that it would get up to all kinds of mischief because that also means it can access literally everything in your home and everywhere
Right.
else and menace all of the birds in your neighborhood. So it would have to be a very well trained cat dragon.
Two things that are notoriously easy to train, by the way: cats and dragons.
It's all about incentives, Cesky. You just gotta make sure they have the right incentives.
Okay,
And it could
I'll
be
work
useful. Dragons have this tendency to build hordes, which is relevant in this book. And so if you could like train your cat dragon to hoard something particular, like paper currency,
it.
there could be ROI in that.
That's right. That's right. There definitely could be.
Although, okay, I can already see it now, though. I want a cat dragon plushie.
Yes,
So
it'd be so cute.
your publishers can get on the merch, the merch
The
deals.
merch train.
Get them on that
I'll let
merch
them know.
train, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'll let them know we have some cat dragon plushie pre-orders to process.
Yes, please. Different colors too, please.
Ooh, what
yeah.
color would you want?
I love blue.
Okay, a blue
It's a good
Patch-Dragon.
color.
Got it.
Yeah.
Like
There could
maybe a
be like a
navy blue.
rare special edition golden shiny.
Ooh,
Ooh.
yes. Okay, we're going definitely on a tangent. But I think last question here from us is what
Mhm.
are you looking forward to exploring in the future with your writing?
Mm. So I have secret publishing news I can't fully announce yet. But that next book of mine is quite different from either Teller or Keeper in that I don't consider it really cozy at all. And so I'm delving much deeper into East Asian mythology in particular and exploring the world of monster hunters and monsters and what defines a monster. And I've been having a lot of fun with
Ooh.
that. Although it has been challenging for my vibes first world building, so I might have to go a little bit beyond the vibes for this particular sort of work.
That's awesome. Very excited. I get it. For somebody who is also very much a vibes first kind of person,
Mm-hmm.
the world building kind of just like I have to find it. It's
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily just there.
Yeah, that gets me really excited for the next book that little hint that
Oh,
you just gave us. That
yeah.
sounds very good.
The pre-orders whenever that comes out. So you already have pre-orders from this year for whenever that comes out.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, my TBR contains multitudes. It can hold any book, so I'll get to them. I'll pre-order
It's
a
like the
lot.
bag
Don't
of
worry.
holding.
Yeah, I just
Mm.
throw books that I want to read in it, and then I pull them out and read them whenever I need to. Yeah.
That's a good way to think about it. I read something depressing the other day, though. Somebody did the math of what is the total number of books that you
Oh
can read in your
no.
lifetime, assuming, standard things about rate of reading and lifespan, etc. And it was a finite number, and I found that very distressing.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to choose to disbelieve that study, just for
Okay.
my own mental health here.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
But
math isn't real.
yeah,
It
numbers are imaginary anyway most
yeah.
of the time, right? So
The
That's true.
limit does not exist.
Yes.
yes, I'm just
Meanwhile,
confident that we'll increase our lifespan by an astronomical amount, and I'll have and everybody will stop producing books for a period of time, and
yes.
then we catch
And
up.
we'll learn how to read like 20 books at once.
Yeah, exactly, and
Yeah.
then from
Yeah.
there we can start writing more, and then we'll all be good.
Okay.
Maybe
Okay.
this is like an idea for a sci-fi for you, Julie.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody invents like a brain computer interface solely for the purpose of reading all of the books that exist.
Yes. Like Murderbot watching its
Yes.
shows. So that takes us to the end of our time. Thank you so much for spending time with us, Julie. It's lovely chatting with you. You are welcome back anytime.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
This was a lot of fun and a great way to end the week.
Good. Yeah, it's been very
Yay!
good for us.
Listeners, The Keeper of Magical Things releases October 14th, 2025. You can pre order it now wherever you get your books from. And maybe support an indie bookstore. And with that, until next time, bye.
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 I get it. For somebody who is also very much a vibes first kind of person,
hmm
the world building kind of just like I have to find it. It's
hmm
not necessarily just there.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
mining.
Mm-hmm.
Or actually, I don't know if that's a good metaphor. I've never mined anything other than in RuneScape, so maybe you should scratch that.
I'll put it in the bloopers.
Okay.